Hello and welcome everyone to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm Napasa Pradhan and I'm going to be your host for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. And before we start off with today's episode and today's discussion, I've got this very important disclaimer, and that is by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. So thank you, friends, and thank you for joining us. Wherever you joined us from, we are streaming live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and very happy to have you. Let me tell you that this is going to be an interactive session. And, you can just comment whatever you have on this topic. And I think whatever we're going to discuss today is incredibly timely and relevant. And we are going to discuss on the future of U.S. immigration in light of the 2024 presidential election results. And with the recent election indicating a win for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris, I think we're now seeing shifts that could heavily impact both immigration policies and economic landscapes for businesses and families alike. So we are definitely going to have a very, very intriguing session, and it's going to be even better because we are going to be joined by a true expert in this field, Prashanthi Reddy, a seasoned immigration attorney who will help us break down these changes, what these changes could really mean. So, Prashanthi, thank you so much for joining us today, and it's really good to have you back with us.
Same here.
So, what have you got to say, Prashanthi? I mean, results are shocking, or maybe a little expected also. But what do you have to say on the 2024 elections?
I guess that's, for people, I mean, this is not immigration related, but for people, I guess what was important is the fact that, their finances and the economy was more important than anything else or any other topic, even the personality of the president or the fact that he was convicted so many offenses. All that was not important. Finally, what was important is the inflation, the fact that eggs and milk cost more. That was the most important topic here. And it looks like a lot of Democrats didn't vote also. There was also Gaza. There was a lot of things happening in the world. And this is similar to what's happening in other parts of the world as well. I mean, there's been high inflation in other parts post COVID. In fact, the US has done better than other countries, but people don't see it that way. They just, I mean,
Mhm.
obviously they will see, how much things cost for them, how much housing is costing. And it's difficult to look at the bigger picture when you're actually, when things are hurting you personally, right? So that's what happened in this election, and that's the result we're seeing.
Thank you so much, Prashanti. And Trump's victory, friends, along with strong Republican presence in the Senate. Well, I think we are definitely looking towards increased scrutiny on immigration for sure, and potentially with stricter regulations and even more barriers, um, literally and even on papers. So let's see what's going to happen. But Prashanti, I have a set of questions, and I'm looking forward for folks out there to also join us. Today's topic of discussion is immigration policy and the 2024 elections. What businesses and families should expect. And I have this first question for you, Prashanti. If you could help us, with the key immigration policy changes that we can expect with the new administration, and how might this impact both businesses and immigrant families?
Yeah, so it's a very broad question, and that's what we're pretty much going to be talking about. What key immigration policies can we expect with the new administration? How might that impact both businesses and immigrant um, families? So, couple of things. I mean, obviously, we all know border security and the construction of the wall will be paramount because this is all based on his policy in the past and also reference to what Republicans have been saying during the elections that they will enforce with respect to immigration. So border security and wall construction, they will continue doing that. They will increase the security in the border. I've heard that they want to hire more border patrol officers. So that's one part with reference to the border. Also, um, I guess what they'll be doing is expanding the border walls also. Um so as I was saying, they plan to hire more people, and so that's taxpayers' money. So the U.S. Mexico border is about 2,000 miles long, and about 500 miles was built um, during the last when he was last in office. They want to complete that border wall. Of course, advocates for the wall argue that it's necessary for national security, but critics are saying that the wall represents a misguided allocation of funds and resources. Many experts argue that um, you know, that immigration enforcement, trying to make sure that they don't come into the country, is more important than actually building the wall. So let's see what happens with reference to that. Also construction raises environmental, logistical concerns. A lot of regions are not conducive to building a wall, and it's not practical. More important is comprehensive immigration reform rather than punishment measures or punitive measures. We can also expect return to remain in Mexico policy. So there was a policy during Trump's era called the Migrant Protection Protocols, and forced migrants who entered the US from the southern border and requested asylum to remain in Mexico while their cases were heard, rather than being allowed in and then, put in a bracelet, and then so that they can be tracked and then sent to court. So Mexico is facing a lot of problems because everyone was stuck there. As I was saying, more border patrol agents, 10,000 new border patrol agents is what Trump plans to do. This would be difficult because, border patrol has struggled to fill its existing positions because there are a lot of funding issues and low morale issues for this job. Not many people want to take it up. So Trump has offered to pay, you know, raises, give bonuses to enhance and retain border patrol agents. So he wants to extend border patrol by about 50%, but he would require congressional approval for that. And we know Senate is most probably going to be Republican, is Republican, and the House is still up for grabs. So we have to see how that goes. All immigration.
Sorry, I look like we lost Prashanthi out there for a minute or so, but I think, yes, friends, today we are going to discuss on the 2024 presidential elections. I'm sure for
So
most of you it will be
Trump has
shocking.
promised to issue an
Oh,
executive order
yes.
ending the long-standing principle that children born in the US are granted citizenship. Trump said he will instruct agencies to require that any child born in the US should have at least one parent who is a lawful permanent resident or a US citizen in order to get citizenship, or in order to get social security or passport, etc. But the 14th Amendment of the Constitution guarantees that all people born in the US have the right to citizenship, regardless of their race or where they come from. So, in order to do this, he'd have an executive order to deny birthright citizenship is likely to be challenged by court because it's against the Constitution. So, unless he's able to change the Constitution, if he has power over both the Senate and the House, but a simple majority is not sufficient, I believe, for this, so it's an uphill task. Other thing that he wants to do is ideal screening for immigrants. So he wants to screen people coming in. This is pretty much the same thing as a Muslim ban, what he did when he was in power last. He's promised to bring back the travel ban from Muslim majority countries, and he wants to reinstate that and expand that travel ban. So he wants to implement a strong ideological screening for all immigrants, and to send immigrant agents to they're going to send immigration agents to protests all around the U.S. So say Gaza, the protest against what's happening in Gaza, they're going to round up the people who go for those protests and then determine that they are pro jihadis or whatever. I mean, the rules
Mhm.
are by themselves very, should I say, undemocratic, but they can be implemented in ways and means if they're passed that are way beyond, uh, you know, um, what a democracy should do, and way beyond what the rule was even intended for. So that's the problem. So sympathists of, for example, the Gaza struggle could also find themselves disqualified for a green card or citizenship, etc., etc. So this is, I guess, it is kind of uh, in place with the existing Republican ideology, present a ideology to keep U.S. Christian, and so also there's a federal law to keep foreign Christian hating communists, Marxists, and socialists out of the country. So they're going to kind of expand on that. So let's see what happens anyway. So that kind of is a little bit about uh, what can be expected. They all want to use the military for immigration enforcement. So
Mhm.
immigration enforcement previously or presently is even the local law enforcement is not involved in immigration enforcement. This is so that people are not afraid to call the police even if they're out of status. If there's some crime committed against them, if there's abuse, domestic abuse, etc., etc. Now, not only will
Mhm.
he involve the police, but he might also involve the military. So once the military is involved, then things kind of go out of hand, as we know. So let's see
Mhm.
how that happens. The militarization of immigration policies, uh, it can be the reason they're doing it is that the present government is framing immigration as a security threat,
Mhm.
portraying all undocumented immigrants as dangerous to public safety, right? So
Right.
this can lead to a problem of security for those, people who are even in status or even out of status. Um,
True.
I mean, they could do this based on color, they could do this based on how you look, right? And then, take
Right.
action first and ask questions later, kind of thing. So let's see what happens with reference to that. It's a little scary. So let's hope it doesn't
I hope
happen.
it won't do. And yes,
Also,
really
he's been
hope
talking
so.
about mass deportations um, as part of his agenda. Of course, an agenda is one thing, and what they actually implement is another thing. So let's
Yeah.
hope some common sense prevails,
Mhm.
and more common sense regulation prevails. I'm hoping for that. But the Republican Party has been talking about mass deportations for undocumented immigrants. Was a
Mhm.
central feature of his immigration discussions ahead of securing his second this term. Um,
Yes.
he wants to carry on what he calls large domestic deportation operations in American, largest domestic deportation operations in American history. This could mean a years long effort to remove an estimated 11 million people who are presently in the US, who are undocumented. Um, this campaign emphasized that he would do this within, the legal framework, and he doesn't require any new legislation to do it. And they're saying that this would benefit American workers by raising their wages and improving their conditions. However, critics are saying that the abrupt removal of millions of immigrants would likely cause to economic instability because a lot of these people are working in key areas where there is a shortage.
Right.
Especially those industries heavily reliant on undocumented labor such as agriculture and hospitality industry. And also, it would be inhumane to do that, and
Immoral.
cause fear among families, even among people who are in status, because a lot of people will be targeted based on just how they look, or how they speak. So it can be kind of destabilizing for the society on the whole to do that. Imagine someone coming to your workplace with guns, etc., to remove someone, or someone coming to your apartment building, or you witness this on the street. You see children separated from adults. It's very traumatic for people who are even seeing it. So let's hope it doesn't come to that. But that's what he has said that he
Sure.
wants to do. So let's wait and watch what will actually
Really,
happen.
yes, let's hope that it doesn't get too scary. I mean, let's not just look that side. But thank you so
Basa?
much, Prashanti, for picking that up and, giving us good look, a sneak peek into what can we really have, what we may have in the plate for us. But anyway, we have Karthik who has joined us on YouTube, and I think we should take up his questions. Karthik is asking, how will the potential reintroduction of strict immigration policies under Trump administration impact the availability of skilled labor in critical sectors, and what strategies can businesses implement to mitigate labor shortages while navigating these changes?
Yeah, so as I was saying, we talked about the impact, and we
Yeah.
can talk a little bit more. We have some questions, but maybe since Karthik has already asked them, we don't need to, we can go over that now. So what happens
Yes, we
in
can.
if Donald Trump wins? Of course, we talked about other things like the wall construction. We should also talk about restrictive asylum and refugee policies. Um, Asylum was pretty much non-existent during Trump's terms. I think the same thing will happen. There'll be a lot of immigration enforcement. That means raids in workplaces to make sure that people who are working uh, are actually in status, or people who have status. So this could cause a problem because there are 11 million people who are undocumented but who are obviously still working. So this would cause a problem for those
Mhm.
employers who hire them, because there'll suddenly be a shortfall in labor, and this could increase. Obviously, then if production is decreased, then prices increase. So as a common person, we might see that there is, shortfall in services to us. We might impact service industry. We might see that, prices go up if, there's a shortfall of labor in agricultural
Yes.
and service industry areas. Um,
Mhm.
Also, with reference to merit-based immigration, legal immigration, he's talking about limiting legal immigration. Um, and so let's talk about that a little bit, about legal immigration and how that will impact what he's planning to do, and how that will impact jobs. So the first thing is the most important way people come to the US if they have a job, or a potential job, is on the H-1B visa. So there is a H-1B visa wage rule which was proposed during his administration, and the only reason it didn't pass is due to some procedural reasons. So that can easily be rectified, and it can be passed. The visa wage rule pretty much says that the wages for people will go up by double or triple the amount that it is now. So for a software engineer, if they're 100,000 in a certain state, it might now be 200,000. So that pretty much prevents anyone, entry level people or even mid level people, from getting jobs as a software engineer. Just to give you one example, because they will not be able to file a H1 because the salary will be too high. He's also talking about limiting the number of visas, limiting the granting of visas, because that can easily be done. So visas will become much, much more difficult to get. And through his executive order, Buy America and Hire America, He placed many restrictions on H-1B, not just the visa wage rule, but also in approving. There was a 30% denial rate in H-1s. Right now, there's a maybe 3% denial rate. And they introduced very restrictive interpretations of the employer-employee relationship, what is a specialty occupation, etc., etc. They found ways and means of denying cases or limiting the um, validity of cases. Sometimes H1s were approved only for a day or for a month or 1 year. Sometimes by the time the approval came, the validity period of the H1 would already be over. So that obviously will impact the job market and the availability of work for non-immigrants, and the economy, because these jobs are not being filled by immigrants, and therefore these jobs will most probably go outside of the country. So that affects economy. Um, Also, he's talked about merit-based immigration. So he wants to scrap everything, H1s and all that, and family-based immigration completely, and just introduce merit-based immigration. So that's something to look into. He has control of both the state and the House. That's what he wants to do, Senate and the House, which means removing H1s completely from the picture, removing family immigration completely, and coming up with a merit-based immigration. And we don't know how the points will be issued for that merit-based immigration, whether they'll be more stringent than the present immigration system. Most probably they will be, because the party is pretty much, they've won the election based on their anti-immigration stand. So that will obviously cause a problem. So these are a few things that will cause problems for legal immigration and for jobs as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prashanthi, for taking that up for Karthik. Karthik, thank you for participating. Keep commenting if you have more further questions. And we have Lasra. This is from your channel, Prashanthi, and asking, I heard the mention of mass deportation. What I would like to know, wouldn't they be given a time span, or is it immediately effective?
So we don't know how all this is going to evolve. We are only talking about what his agenda is, based on, before he got elected, when he was running for elections, when he talked about his promises. This was one of the things that he wanted to do, on the basis of which, he's been elected. So the details will come, whether it'll be implemented, how much, to what extent it'll be implemented, when will it be implemented. All these details will start coming in from next year sometime. So we have to wait and see. We don't know. But I just have to tell you that it's very, very impractical and almost impossible
Mhm.
to deport the 11 million or more illegal immigrants that are in this country, and very, very time consuming and expensive, and a waste of taxpayers' money, I must say. How he will do this, whether he'll be able to implement it or not, is something we have to wait and see.
Yes. Saying is a different thing and doing is a different thing. So let's see
I mean,
how
he'll do
much
it.
can be done or
He,
how soon at least. Yes,
he definitely has the intention to do it, and he will definitely try and do it. As to how much can be done, what will be struck down by courts, what he can do as president is something to.
definitely.
But
Prashanthi, thank you so much for giving that insight.
just find that he does not have to pass any new law to do mass deportations. It's within the law. The border protection, or the ICE can go and remove people who are out of status. So it's within the law. So he doesn't have to pass any new law. It's a question of whether he has the resources to do it or not.
All right. Very interesting. Thank you so much, Prashanthi, for that. And Lasra, also for your question. Thank you so much. Keep commenting. Well, we have another question. And before we move on, okay, let's take up Zach's question. Will this affect future TN visa applicants, or will this still be a safe option?
So all immigrant, I mean, I don't know again. So I mean, this is just my opinion based on what happened in his previous 4 years, and based on what his agenda is now that he's elected, based on what agenda items he has said he will do, before the elections. All, not only undocumented, all immigration is will be restricted in some way or form. So getting visas will be more problematic. Getting cases approved with USCIS will be more difficult. Getting a TN visa at the port of entry will be more difficult. CBP will be more stringent letting people in, or issuing, I-94s. So all this, let's see what happens to what extent, but that definitely how it'll affect each one of us is difficult to say. Obviously, it'll affect some people more than it'll affect others. And I'm just hoping that common sense will prevail. And he has at some point said that he will be pro legal immigration. He said both things. So I hope that part is correct. Where the part is that's the part that he means, where he said he'll be more pro legal immigration. So let's wait and see what happens. I'm hoping for that.
Absolutely, Prashanthi. Yes, in fact, I mean, since we're talking about visas, let's also talk about how might this visa programs like H-1B and L-1 also be affected in terms of quotas, maybe, or eligibilities, and even application processes. Anything on that note?
So I don't think there'll be enough. I mean, okay, back a step. So quotas, H1B cap is 65,000 plus 20,000 for masters. That's not going to change. I don't think Trump is going to increase the number of H1s. If he does, I'll be the most happiest person. And maybe I'll vote for Trump next time, but I don't think that'll happen. And anyway, he'll be out.
Okay.
But whatever it is, but I hope it happens. But I doubt, because again, they don't have a immigration friendly policy, and they also it's not easy to do that because you need control of both the House and the Senate, and you need a will to be able to do it. So, and you need enough people voting for it, even if you have control. So I don't think. I think. I hope it doesn't get decreased. But again, for that you need the Senate and the House to approve. So
That's right.
whatever happens, I think, is more likely to happen through executive orders, whatever he can do, and whatever the courts don't strike down. But remember, the courts are also have become over time more Republican leaning, so that he could find more support uh, in the courts as well. Um, so, with reference to how it affects H1s, he will try to decrease the number of cases approved by giving USCIS instructions to do so. And
Mhm.
USCIS will find, um, uh, creative ways of decreasing approvals or increasing denials, which they always do. So let's see what happens this time around. That's applicable to H's, L's. L's are already, L1A's and L1B's, unless they're blanket, are already, there's a lot of scrutiny on them. So that scrutiny will be increased. And there's a lot of subjective ways in which L1s can be denied, more so than H1s. So, you can expect that that will be affected. L1 blankets, like, you people who come through TCS with Pro on a blanket, L1Bs or L1As, they'll simply stop issuing visas at the consulate, and they can very easily do that, and they don't have to give anybody an explanation for it. Or they can give a very superficial explanation, and there's no appeal process on it. So, it's all about what the Republican government next year wants to do with reference to legal immigration. So it can be affected, or depending on what their intent is. But he can very easily, without passing any laws, cause a lot of damage to legal immigration also, like he did in his last term. So let's see.
Let's see, really, and we really hope that it won't be too difficult for all the immigrants, at least. But thank you so much, Prashanthi, for taking that up. And now let's move on to NT. This is also on YouTube. So let's take up NT's question. Um, this is probably on your channel as well, Prashanthi. In the last term by President Trump, he had restricted a lot of H-1B visa extensions, right, during his last term. Will he be doing the same, and what kind of restriction he might be implementing again? That's what we were discussing, NT. And Prashanthi, anything more you want to add on this?
Yeah, so he's talking specifically about extending a H1. So once you're on a H1,
H-1B.
extending it. Previously, and even presently to a great extent, I mean, they give USCIS always gives difference to the previously approved H1. So if there are not no changes, they usually approve the H1 because that's what they're told to do. But maybe that policy will be removed and deference to previously approved H1s will not be given, and that will obviously then implement H1B visa extensions as well. So H1B visas will not be approved as easily as they were. They might send RFEs asking you to show that you have been in status during the previous visa term, and they might ask for a lot of restrictive documents. They might bring back the right to control. They might bring back employer-employee relationship that will impact extensions as well as new H1s. So yeah, everything is maybe impacted.
Everything is going to be impacted. I mean, and we just have to wait and watch, but definitely expect new changes, friends, and look forward for, let's see, what do we have on our plate. Now we have Vijay D also on YouTube. This is on your channel, Prashanthi,
Oh,
asking,
you want to ask the
hi.
other question? Sorry, he has another question.
Okay,
Will President
sure,
Trump
sure, we
remove?
can,
Yeah.
but we'll just take this one quickly. Hi,
Okay.
will there
Sure.
be
Sure.
any good movement of priority dates? What do you have to say on this? Maybe we can talk
Uh,
about what we can expect in
I,
December
I
bulletin.
don't see. I don't see how or why. Um, I mean, so what is happening? I mean, we're talking about movement in priority dates if Trump comes into power, right? So, but that's because that's what the topic is about. And I don't see why that will change. Um, unless because there's already a backlog of people who are already in the US. We're not talking about new people filing or anything like that. So and I don't think there'll be any positive effect on this unless he passes a law. He has, again, he agrees to pass a law along with the Democrats um, to increase the visa numbers. And I don't see him again. I hope he does good for legal immigration, but he didn't do that last year. So let's see, wait and see what happens. If there's no legislature, I don't see any change in the priority date movement.
Well, thank you so much, Prashanthi, and thank you, Vijay D, for your question. Let's just wait and watch and hope for the best. That's all I can say right now. But Prashanthi, I have more questions, from my end as well. So let's take up this one. And what changes could be anticipated for DACA, deferred action for childhood arrivals, recipients, and how might these affect their long-term status and work opportunities?
So obviously, if there is no DACA, then none of them have work opportunities. So Trump has challenged DACA, has filed a lawsuit. So DACA has been up and down for years now. And under the Trump government, if he decides to focus on DACA earlier on, I think and through the courts, etc., by filing lawsuits. And so right now it's just status quo. So DACA recipients are continuing to get EADs and allowed to travel. So if Trump changes that, because it's already on it's based on an executive order, DACA. So it's on very slippery ground. So he can easily revoke that, remove it, or go to court and ask, file a lawsuit saying that The previous government had no power to create such a program. He did remove deferred action for other people, so people non-priority deferred action. So people who were not a priority to be deported, their cases were just closed under the previous government and the government before that under the Democratic government. So that Trump removed, and he had a policy of pretty much removing everyone who was not in status, whether they were a threat to the country or not. So that kind of burdened the system because they had no resources, and all the money was being spent in that. So USCIS had no resources for legal immigration, and backlogs increased. So a lot of things happened. So we can expect more of the same if he uses all the resources towards these, towards removing illegal aliens. So let's see what happens. But with reference to the H4 question, I wanted to take that up, Nipasa.
Let's take it up. This is from NT again, asking, will President Trump remove H4 work permit visa in this term?
Yeah, so this
Prashanti,
is
what do you have to
also,
say?
yes, yes. So this is also something that has gone to court, and then the present government kind of maintained the status quo, but President Trump did try to remove H4 work visas, and there was a lawsuit filed, and I'm not remembering right now. I think the lawsuit was pending, and then the present government decided not to proceed with that lawsuit. So definitely, if the courts determine that again, USCIS has no authority to issue work permits for H4s, then that will be removed. And so it's just a matter of filing a lawsuit, um, and the court deciding that USCIS does not have the authority to grant it, or USCIS themselves deciding that they have no authority to grant it and removing it. So yes, this is possibility. There's a possibility that this will be affected as well.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, NT, for your questions. Really amazing questions. And keep participating, maybe if you have more questions. Now, Prashanti, I think I'll go on with another question of mine. And that is, if you could tell us what role might family reunification play under this new administration? And could we expect changes to priority categories for family based immigration?
So priority dates may not change, but with reference to
Family reunification.
family reunification, that might change because family-based cases are filed for family reunification, right? Because if their spouses outside the country, they want to bring them in. If they have children outside the country, immediate relative, that's why they have that family category, so that family can stay unified. But Trump has first of all said that he wants to remove family-based immigration. So there goes family reunification out the window completely. Uh, and wants to replace it with a merit-based system, which is not a family-based system. So if you have a spouse who's a US citizen and they want you to come and live with them in the US, you cannot do that because that won't exist anymore if he has his way. Also, his last term, he tried to make family-based immigration and all green card processing actually as difficult as possible by including a new public charge law. So this public charge law
Okay.
expanded the definition of public charge, meaning who is a potential, who can be considered a potential public charger. So a person who is likely to take money from the government, and therefore, on that basis, a green card can be denied. Right. So he expanded that definition of public charge. Right now, public charge is just a person who takes money for income sustenance, or a person who has taken money for the sake of who's taken money for long-term institutionalization at the cost of the government, right? If they've been put in a nursing home or something at the cost of the government, so that those people are disqualified. Nobody else. He expanded that to a great extent to include anybody who's taken welfare at any point of time, people who have taken food stamps at any point of time. Not only that, people who have the potential, people who maybe have not taken anything at any point of time, but like, for example, family
Mhm.
based immigrants, like old parents who have the potential of becoming a public judge because they say that they're not working. So we think that they are a potential
Mhm.
of becoming a public judge. So he's expanded it to that extent. Again, that went to court also. There was, the courts are people are the courts are going to have a very busy time under Trump, I must say, with reference to immigration, because everything is going to go to court, and that's our last resort, really. That the courts will bring some fairness into the system. But
Mhm.
yeah, last time that's what happened. Public charge law went to court, and it was stalled
Mhm.
from being. It was implemented for some time, and then someone filed a lawsuit, and then they stopped implementing it. So it was a mess. So we can expect more of a mess this time also, with reference to family-based immigration and family reunification also.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prashanthi. I was just going through, there's so many questions. We will take them up, but thank you so much for taking that up, Prashanthi. And I think we have Jitendra Jain in LinkedIn. Let's take up this one. He's asking any impact on L2S work permit in Trump regime?
Regime. So
Regime.
under Trump's regime, so the present government made L2 work permit automatic. So you didn't have to apply for an actual I-765. So they can go back to the previous way of doing things, where they ask you to actually apply for an I-765. And once you have to apply for I-765, there's so much delay and backlog. And you can only expect the backlog to become worse under the Trump USCIS, because they won't have proper funding and they won't have resources. So yes, that will have an impact because you'll have to now file most probably I-765, and you'll have to file it every year. And so there'll be times when you will not be able to work because, if the 765 itself is taking 7 to 8 months or 10 months, then it's as good as not having. This is how they're going to try and circumvent immigration law and try to take away benefits from people, even those benefits that are supposed to be given to them under law. If they require them to follow more stringent processes, and if USCIS processing time increases, then it's as good as taking away that benefit.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Jitendra, for participating on LinkedIn, and thank you, Prashanthi, for taking it up. Now we have Farid. I don't mind, Prashanthi. I think we have to take these up. We don't have too much time. We will just rush through some of these questions from the audience first, if that's fine. So, how can Trump affect
Sure.
pending
Yeah, yeah,
affirmative
absolutely.
asylum cases?
Um,
So
well, first
Farid's
thing is,
status is like he's
what happened last
saying
term
applied
is,
for asylum and still waiting for work permit. If Trump changes work permit conditions, how my work permit will be managed, according to Biden administration or newer Trump rules?
right. So if some new rules come into place, that could be, they could apply them moving forward, or they could apply them retrospectively for pending cases as well. Of course, this will be challenged in court, but yeah, they could do them both ways. So it could affect your pending asylum case as well. And the other way it could affect you is also, your case will take much longer to process, because under Trump's administration, a lot of the judges were not appointed. So there was a huge shortage of immigration judges because he didn't care. That was not their priority at that time. They wanted to just leave them open, vacant. So there was a huge backlog, and it's still continuing, that backlog of immigration cases, and therefore people, just to get a hearing, had to wait a year. So that can definitely affect you. And also, if any new changes are there, that could affect pending cases as well. Yes.
participating and for your question. And thank you so much, Prashanti, for taking it up. Thank you. And thank you, Fareed. Well, we have another question. This is from K. Sridhar. This is about the investor visa, and this is on your channel, Prashanti, asking what are the new rules that may come? Maybe he's asking regarding the investor visa or the EB5, right?
We don't know. Yeah, it's the EB5. I don't think there'll be any new rules that come for a EB5 visa. I'm not expecting anything positive, but if I'm wrong, I'll be the happiest person. So let's wait and see.
Okay, K. Sridhar will just have to keep our hopes up, okay, and look out. And now I think we will take up. We have already taken this from Fareed. So thank you so much, Fareed's question. And we also had NT, who had commented. Let me just see if I can share my screen. But before we take that question, I have this next question for you, Prashanti, and that is, um, if you could tell us, if you could outline the potential impacts, on immigration processing times and maybe backlogs. Do you think it'll be impacted by this new? Of course, it'll be impacted, but what changes do you think we can expect? And what are the indications that will be prioritized?
So as I was saying, processing times, I already discussed it, that processing times are likely to be impacted because it's just that it's no longer a priority for USCIS to
Mhm.
keep up. Under the Democratic government, it was a big priority to decrease processing times, and they spent a lot of money in it. They took because of COVID situation, they were received a grant. They received money from the government as well to improve their processing time. They've hired a lot of officers. They're doing remote processing to improve processing time. Remote processing of visa interviews, remote processing of immigrant interviews. Judges are doing remote hearings to improve processing time. So all these and they've also started online processing, which has improved processing time. So they've kind of brought it back to semblance of, they've gotten some control on the processing times. Now, if that no longer becomes uh, becomes a criteria or becomes something that is important, if that is no longer important to the next government, then it's likely that processing times will lapse again. People will not be hired. They will not be given the jobs and benefits. So there's no incentive for them to even join, USCIS or join the immigration court as a judge, etc., or a CBP or ICE or whatever. So only the enforcement wing will be hired. More people will be hired. More jobs will be given to them. Uh, you know. So with reference to the benefits wing, I think if Trump does what he's saying he'll do, then there's not much incentive for people to join the USCIS, which is the benefits wing, and so processing times will decrease for sure.
Okay.
And if
Well,
less people file cases because they're afraid that cases will get denied, then there's less fee for
mhm,
USCIS, and that will increase processing times also.
right. Right. So, I mean, I think a little early to say, but we can definitely look forward for a lot of changes to happen, and we just have to stay vigilant and do our research properly. There will be a lot of changes, so maybe uh, let's see and hope for the best. Well, Prashanti, I had a few questions. I mean, we had NT some time back who had commented. He had also another question commented on another video of ours. So let's take that up. So NT is saying, In in the last term by President Trump, he had restricted, sorry, okay, I'm sorry, I zoomed in too much. So, in the last term by President Trump, he had restricted a lot of H-1B visa extensions during his term between 2016 and 2020. He will be doing the same, and what kind of restriction he might be implementing during this presidency period. Also, can we expect fast processing towards I-140 visa approvals? Thanks.
Uh, restrictions on. I'm sorry. Can you go back to that question, please?
Yes,
So
in the
restrictions
last
on
term, yes,
restrictions on just restriction on Trump restricted a lot of H-1B visa extensions. Oh, so are they talking about visas as in visas outside the country, or are they talking about H-1B
he's
extensions in the
asking
country? I'm thinking.
also about if we can expect fast processes towards I-140 visa approvals.
So I think we already talked about
And
visa H-1B extensions as to how it'll impact um, people that H-1B
mhm,
visa extensions also will be impacted just as new H-1s are impacted because the approval rate will go down because they have a more restrictive immigration policy towards legal as well as other kinds of immigration. Um, Fast processing, I think we already discussed. I don't see why they should be fast processing. I'm happy if they maintain what they're doing now. Premium processing, I'm hoping will still be available. So let's wait and see.
mhm. All right. Thank you so much, NT, for participating. We have another comment, and I think if you would like to take this up, also we could take this, Prashanti. This guy's asking if a guy gets approved for L1 visa, all processes done applying as unmarried, and he marries before coming to the USA. Then what is the process to apply for the spouse, and how much time are we expecting to bring her to the USA in L2?
After they're married, she can go anytime to the consulate and apply for an L2 visa.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking these up also, Prashanti. Thank you. We are definitely going to take up more comments. So before we leave today, let us take Swapna. Swapna has commented in LinkedIn. These days, approvals for TN, POEs has also similar though to get approved for business consultants than computer system analysts. What are the possible changes you see to USMCA agreement between USA and Canada? Any
I don't see
comments?
any. I don't see any changes. And for TN, it's always a little difficult to. It's easier to get like a technical position versus like a business consultant position is always a little difficult, always has been.
Mhm.
But as long as you follow what's in their list of jobs, and if you fit into one neatly, and if you have that educational background, there shouldn't be a problem. It's just you only have a problem when you don't fit into one of those categories neatly. Then there's always room for speculation or denial by the officer based on subjective grounds. I don't see any possible changes to TN other than TN's getting harder with reference to getting approved at the CBP. Like everything else might get harder. The same thing could apply to TNs.
True. So thank you, Prashanti, for that. And well, Maruti, I'm really very sorry. Apologies, really, for keeping you waited for so long. And I think we should definitely take up Maruti's question. In a brief, could you also address the situation where students are suffering to find jobs? Majority of companies are not ready to take OPT students, and how this will progress. Will it get better or worse?
Uh, yeah, suffering to find jobs. Majority of companies are not ready to take. The job market is not that great right now, and that's why you're finding it difficult to get jobs. That has nothing to do really with immigration. Um, and especially for entry level positions, when the job market is not good, entry level positions are the ones that suffer the most. And people who are experienced still are able to get jobs, right? So that's the situation right now. And that's why they're not taking OPT students, because there's no entry level positions available. So you have to wait until the job market gets better. And under the Trump administration, I don't know whether it will. I mean, it should get better at some point, right? Because there is a cycle that is followed, and it's a natural cycle. No longer, no matter who is in government, the despite who is in government, the economy in the U.S. always thrives, but it just goes through cycles, good and bad. So if it's down now, it'll be better in the coming years. So you just have to wait and see.
For sure, for sure. Thank you so much, Maruti. And if you have any further questions, please comment. I'm so sorry, I must have missed your question in the beginning. But yes, let's move on now. We got Rob Locks, who's also asking another question, and this is on your channel, Prashanthi. Current processing time for perm is close to 2 years. Any chances of this getting up faster?
I don't know why people are thinking that things will get better and faster. You shouldn't even ask. I don't see why it'll get faster. Again, that is my opinion. And it's based on what Trump has himself said many times with reference to what his agenda is on immigration. Unless he changes his mind, no, I don't expect anything positive to happen. And I really wish that it will, and I wish that I'm wrong. And I hope that he changes his mind and is at least with reference to legal immigration, understands that legal immigration is extremely important for the economy, for the US economy, and I hope he encourages that, like he said he would do in the past. And then again, he said he wouldn't. And based on his previous track record, he didn't. So let's see what happens. I hope he does this time
Let's
around.
see. Yes, let's see. All right. So we have JJF also on your channel, Prashanti, saying rather, everything is still the same. Trump is not in power yet. So what do you have to
Correct.
say?
We're absolutely, we're only talking about next year, right? He will be in power next year, which is 2 months from now. Right
Yes.
now, everything is the same.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, so nothing is affected, and I think the next thing we will be discussing sooner is the December visa bulletin, and maybe we may not see too much movement in any of the dates also.
Correct. Correct.
But thank you so much, Prashanti. So far, so good, and I think we have covered most of the questions. But and yes, we should. I have another question, maybe before we wrap up our show for today, and that is if you could tell us with regard to, if an immigrant family is concerned about maintaining their lawful permanent residency, particularly with stricter travel and documentation requirements, what
Yeah.
advice would you provide to ensure compliance under new policies?
Uh, Lawful permanent residency. So you're talking about green card. So if you're talking about maintaining their lawful permanent residency, so that is green card. Well, the
Yes.
laws are there in place. They haven't changed. It's not possible to change laws unless again you go to the legislature to change them. So it's not likely many laws will change unless he's able to do that, which I doubt it. But their interpretation or how they enforce the laws might change. So previously, if a border patrol officer, if you stayed outside the country for more than a year, maybe previously border control CBP would allow you into the country if you showed as to why you stayed outside and gave reasons that, and also showed that you maintained your residency. Now, if they are advised to be stricter with allowing people into the country, they may follow a stricter policy and not allow people who have been outside the country to come back after a period of 1 year. That's one example I can give you. Um,
Mhm.
and whenever you leave the country, there's always a chance. I mean, it doesn't so much apply to permanent residents, but for anyone else, there's always a risk that you're taking of not being allowed to come back into the country. And if there's stricter uh, rules, then a lot of people there'll be more investigation into what is your status, how did you maintain it, They'll look into your social media, and there might be more people who are returned back from the border.
Hmm. Thank you, Prashanthi, for those insights. And we were just about to leave, and we have Shahid with a question. So maybe we could leave with his question. He's asking, "Hi, what will happen to EB to NIW? Any comments?"
Nothing will happen. It's still the law, right? It's still there. But again,
Yes.
as I said, the present government has been trying to make NIW easier, has given several guidances as to within the framework of the law as to who qualifies, who doesn't, how to give alternative evidence. And we talked about that previously, I think, or at least I did. So how to give, you know, how to qualify someone who is not traditionally maybe qualified under the rules that are set out. So so they've been trying to make NIWs or EB1s easier so that more people can get approved under these categories. Um, and business people can be included. I mean, people in the science STEM are more likely to get an EB1 approved than people in business. So they were trying to make it more business friendly. Um, but obviously that may not be the case anymore. So you can expect stricter scrutiny, and there's a lot of whether someone is qualified unless, especially if they're borderline, unless they won the Nobel Prize or something. So you can expect there'll be more scrutiny, and it'll be more difficult for these cases to get approved.
Right. Right, Prashanthi, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Shahid, also for participating with your question. And I think we will have to wrap up now, Prashanthi. But before we leave, maybe if you have anything to say on immigration policy and the 2024 elections, any end note to today's discussion?
Let's be optimistically cautious. That let's be optimistic and cautious is what I meant to say. Optimistic, hoping that the Trump government will not derail the immigration system completely, and optimistic that hopefully there will be some positive things in this. You always have to look for the positive in everything. And cautious of mindful of the fact that that might not be so. So when you're applying for anything under, for next year onwards, be cautious. Make sure that you have you have provided all the documentation possible, and looked at all the possible ways that they can deny it and overcome that in your preliminary application itself, with the mindset that they're going to look at it with more scrutiny. So that's why I'm saying cautious when filing your applications, but at the same time guardedly optimistic that hopefully things won't be as bad as what I'm saying.
But thank you so much. It was lovely having you today, Prashanthi, and definitely very exciting because the sudden change and the results and everything, so much happening at the same time. It was really nice having your insights, and I would just say thank you once again, Prashanthi. It's always nice to have you with us and for sharing your expertise and giving us a clear view of the challenges and opportunities that might lie ahead in immigration policies. So we are all looking forward to seeing how these changes will unfold and how businesses and families can best prepare. So, thank you so much for guiding us today. And, folks out there, if you want to consult Attorney Prashanthi Reddy, you can give her a call. Here's a phone number, 212 That's a phone number. You can even email Attorney Prashanthi Reddy, and her email address is prashanthi at reddyesq.com, and go visit www.reddyesq.com to get to know more about Attorney Prashanthi Reddy. Thank you, Prashanthi, for joining us, and I'm looking forward for another session in the coming week.
Thank you, Nipasa. Take care.
Take care, you too. Have a good day. Thank you, folks out there, for joining us and for participating. Lovely questions. And I know This is a little overwhelming and we want answers right away, but sometimes we just have to be a little more patient and look forward for better things coming ahead of us. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was indeed great having you and all of your questions. Don't forget to like, share, and also subscribe to our channel. Hit that bell icon so that whenever we have discussions like these, you are notified and you can join us to ask your questions. So yes, thank you so much. This is Nipasa Pradhan saying bye for now from Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. And until next time, then take care and